Why black men are angry. Again, thankful for our ancestors and elders, pioneers in the black community who have gone before us, on whose shoulders we stand on as a black youth in the United States of America in our efforts to carry out their legacies and efforts for equality, equity. Why black men are angry. Anger isn't always an indicator of danger. Anger can be an indicator of wisdom and enlightenment. Someone in your family, someone close to you is being abused or violated. Other family members get word of it. You should be angry. That anger should motivate you to discontinue the abuse, to stop the abuse, right? Anger isn't always an indicator of a lack of safety or caution. There's injustice occurring in your community. The anger, frustration, disappointment should drive you for change. In American society, identity is less about who you decide to be and more about who you are allowed to be. Sociologists have long argued that identity formation operates within pre existing hierarchies that quietly dictate legitimacy, safety, and belonging. For Black youth, especially Black boys, this means identity is often assigned before agency is developed. Research on stereotype threat by Stanford University psychologists shows that when young people are aware, they are viewed through a deficit lens. Performance, aspiration, and self trust decline, not because of a lack of ability, but because the system preloads expectations onto them. Their choices are not freely explored, they are presented. Deviating from those scripts invites backlash, suspicion, or punishment, reinforcing the message that effort is futile when legitimacy is externally rationed. Anthropological and evolutionary psychology research is clear. Humans are wired for inclusion. Belonging was once as essential for survival, and exclusion triggered threat responses in the brain. Studies by social psychologists such as Roy Baumeister demonstrate that social rejection increases aggression, depression, and disengagement, not because individuals are flawed, but because exclusion destabilizes identity. Black youth are placed in a double bind: conform to social norms that promise inclusion but rarely deliver it, or reject those norms and be labeled a deviant. When Black youth do attempt conformity, academic excellence, emotional restraint, civic compliance, they often encounter the same ceilings, producing deeper resentment. The pain is not rebellion itself, it's the betrayal of effort without acceptance. So, at its fundamental biological level, Black youth, Black children are in a predicament where the autonomy that different cultures, white culture, Hispanic culture, different groups are afforded to have more of an autonomy or a choice in their identity. Black men are in a unique situation where the choices have already been made for you. And human beings naturally want to be a part of the group, they naturally want to belong. It's rare you can become successful in this world on an island. There is a degree of collective connectedness. And unfortunately, in the Black experience as a young male, you are presented with barriers to access to this collective group unless it's based on certain conditions. You have to fit the script. And this places youth in a very unfair disadvantage socially. We are social beings. Social media is popping more than ever. You care about what other people think about you. That's facts. And for the Black youth, for the Black man, you have to in some ways rebel. You have to rebel the idea that you must fit a certain script to be allowed to fit in, to be successful, to be approved. You have to rebel, not in a way where you have to burn it all down, right? But you have to burn down the negativity. You have to burn down the unfair narcissistic expectations and opinions of what others think you could be in order to win, Black man. You have to burn it down. When power players design systems that reward some identities with presumed innocence, credibility, and mobility, while others must constantly prove their worth, the result is selective civility. Research from Harvard University on implicit bias shows that people unconsciously extend trust and patience along racial lines, even when intentions are egalitarian. This creates an environment where Black men must constantly negotiate how non threatening, non angry, or acceptable they appear. Over time, this erodes intrinsic motivation. And a lot of these immigrants, these foreigners that are coming in American society, they don't give a damn about the psychological, sociological impacts of living in America based on racial lines. They don't care. Okay. It's about how can I survive? How can I protect my children and my family in this dark, difficult world? And that further invites greater audiences that fall in line with the script. Okay. It's about where I fit in this ladder. To hell what you niggas got going on. It's about me and mine's. Whatever role I have to play, whatever face I have to adopt to win, that's what I'll do. And that's what you see in the entertainment industry. That's what you see across the board. Over time, this erodes intrinsic motivation. The resentment that follows is not oppositional for its own sake, it is a response to being denied full participation in the social contract. When inclusion is structurally blocked, rebellion becomes the only remaining psychological pathway to self respect. The Black man has to rebel. This is how the system is designed. There's no other way. You have to rebel against what others think about you or deem appropriate for you to be included. You have to rebel against it. If you don't and you adopt it, you're going to be resentful. There's no other way. To be great in America, the Black man must often and has to rebel, not through violence or nihilism, but through radical self definition. Research on self determination theory shows that autonomy, competence, and relatedness are core psychological needs. When autonomy is restricted, flourishing requires resistance. This rebellion is internal before it's external, refusing to let public narratives define private worth, refusing to internalize lowered expectations, refusing to outsource identity to a system that profits from containment. History repeatedly shows that Black excellence emerges not from compliance with inherited models, but from a conscious rejection of them. Serenity, in this sense, is not passivity, it is defiance. And in a society that tells Black youth who they are before asking who they want to be, rebellion becomes the price of becoming whole. And this is why a lot of different cultures don't get it. They're just now kind of hopping on the bandwagon because of the Epstein files, where now everybody wants to be, knowledgeable, and now everybody is like, no, you know what? No, we have to tell. Now truth is becoming the order of the day. All of a sudden, right? It takes youth to get abused. It takes crime for a lot of the white identity extremists to finally embrace the reality that you have to operate from truth in a system that has already pre-programmed the expectations of who you are allowed to be in this society. Anger is not always an indicator for danger, it's not always an indicator for caution. Anger is an indicator for self respect in some instances. The anger often assigned to Black men is not a personality trait, it is a misdiagnosis. Research consistently shows that what the public reads as anger is frequently the visible output of chronic identity threat, constrained opportunity, and persistent misrecognition. When a group is repeatedly framed as dangerous, irresponsible, or deficient, the nervous system adapts to survive that framing. Media narratives reinforce the distortion. Studies on news representation show Black men are disproportionately portrayed in context of crime, aggression, and failure, while complexity, tenderness, and competence are underrepresented. Over time, these portrayals don't just influence how others see Black men, they shape how institutions respond to them and how Black men must navigate the world. Anger then becomes a rational response to being forced to perform calm under suspicion, strength under deprivation, and resilience without repair. What's rarely discussed is that this isn't just emotional, it's an identity battle with measurable outcomes in education, relationships, health, and generational mobility. The mentorship gap. Direction shapes destiny. Mentorship is one of the strongest protective factors for emotional regulation, discipline, and long term stability. A landmark multi year evaluation by Big Brothers Big Sisters of America found that mentored Black youth were significantly less likely to engage in substance use, showed improved emotional regulation, and demonstrated higher school engagement compared to non mentor peers. These outcomes weren't abstract, they were behavioral, measurable, and sustained. A second body of evidence comes from a longitudinal education research led by Harvard University. Economists studying mobility and life outcomes. Their findings show that Black boys who had consistent exposure to non parental adult male role models, teachers, coaches, mentors, experienced improved discipline, reduced behavioral infractions, and higher college enrollment rates. The absence of mentorship wasn't neutral, it actively increased risk. A third data set from community based youth development studies shows that mentored Black adolescents demonstrate higher rates of college graduation and lowered justice system involvement. Yet, despite this evidence, Black boys remain among the least likely to be matched with long term mentors. This isn't a character flaw, it's a structural vacuum. When direction is scarce, frustration fills the gap. We have to start taking accountability for our younger Black youth. I'll be 40 this year. A lot of the millennials will be 40 this year. How can you use your life experience, if you're blessed to make it to 40, to encourage Black youth, maybe to not make the same decisions you did? Maybe to get a little bit of networking advice, career advice, educational advice, how to fight substance use, how to develop a strong self concept in the face of peer pressure when the system is against you. They might need that. Millennials now more than ever should be focusing on the youth. We're lucky if we get another 20 years. But what do we want to focus on? Get rich quick schemes. It's about me and social media and everybody seeing how fancy my lifestyle is. It's about me still competing with people like I'm 20 years old. Black men inherit social labels they never consented to. Research in social psychology shows that rigid stereotypes, aggressive, unreliable, hypersexual, emotionally unsafe, function as cognitive shortcuts that societies use to reduce complexity. These labels are then enforced through social norms, policy, and interpersonal expectation, a process scholars identify as social engineering. These stereotypes don't just shape public perception, they actively restrict relational choice. Studies on interracial dating, marriage markets, and family court outcomes show Black men are often evaluated through deficit based assumptions about loyalty, provision, and emotional safety. This forces many to compromise, overperform stability, suppress vulnerability, or abandon authentic desires to be seen as quote unquote acceptable partners. When Black men resist these narratives and take relational or professional risk, maybe you're the Black man that want to date an Asian girl. Maybe you're the Black man that wants to date. Can you believe Black men are still harassed for dating outside of their race? And you got Black women who will celebrate other Black women loving on these white men, won't even bat an eye at it. Even white men damn near on their deathbed. But let a Black man take it, which it shouldn't matter to us at this point. You shouldn't give a damn, Black man. You're the leader in this shit, regardless of what anybody thinks. But it's just beyond me. I'm like, these motherfuckers got nerve in this country. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And that goes back into this idea of how this social engineering was designed to keep the Black man from winning. We can't let you guys get into the collective consciousness, right? It takes more than one person to be successful. That's why you see so many people in the comment section on iShow speak, we made the right person famous. We made the right person. Now you motherfuckers are waking up to your role. Now you're waking up to how much of an impact collectively the human economy has on the success of each other. Okay? Now take that knowledge and look at the layer beneath the surface and all the complexities, intricacies that younger Black men have to overcome just to win. And it wasn't easy for iShow Speed. He had to put in some work. See, in America, they always show you the outcome. You always see the victory lap. You always see all the accolades. Look at everything I got. See, but you don't know how much work that young man had to put in, how much sacrifice to get to where he is. When Black men resist these narratives and take relational or professional risk that violate the community's expectations, the penalties are steep. Higher divorce rates. Maybe you want to date a Latina. Oh man, these Latinos are hot, man. I'm looking at Training Day. Denzel got him a hot Latina. I gotta get me one of those. Maybe they love us. Good luck. Good luck with that. And it sucks because you deserve who makes you happy. Maybe you want to date Chinese culture. Maybe you want to date Asians. That's your business. I'm not mad at you for that. You can date whoever you want to date, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whoever. But you got to understand that you're in a world of social engineering. A lot of times you're not being seen for who you could be. You're being seen for what's programmed into their consciousness of what a Black man represents, which is why a lot of times it doesn't work. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. And a lot of us get frustrated. Man, they're not allowing me to have agency, Randy. They're forcing me to date this person, date that person. They're forcing me to fit the narrative. And it does suck. I understand that. And I'm not telling you, I'm not going to be the one to tell you, hey, man, fit the script, bite the bill. But these are the realities that Black men have to deal with. And this is what further causes divide between Black men and Black women because they don't have these same barriers. These women can sleep around with whoever they want to. Yeah, Black brothers might have an opinion, but that's not going to stop them. You're not going to argue Big Mama. When Black men resist these narratives and take relational or professional risks that violate expectation, the penalties are steep. Again, higher divorce rates, increased custody losses, and social alienation. Younger generations are not immune. Despite cultural progress, rhetoric, surveys show that negative stereotypes about Black male partners persist across age groups, including among peers within their own communities. A lot of these white folks don't even have, only closeness they had to Black was on their Firestone tires. But they're on social media slashing out all this prejudice. Oh, yeah, I see posts where brothers are, with Asian girls, and first thing these white boys and these Asians say, oh, yeah, good luck, future baby mama. A lot of these white folks, Asian dudes, don't even have Black friends, Black neighbors, because if they did, they would, present themselves a little bit more respectfully, or they wouldn't. Who knows? They don't even have any connection to the Black community, but the first thing come out of their mouths is stereotypes. So this thing is ongoing. It's a machine. I'm just like, man, Black men cannot win, but we can if we rebel. Deep cultural progress rhetoric. Surveys show that negative stereotypes about Black male partners persist across age groups, including their peers, even within their own communities. Chronic inhibition breeds resentment, not because of entitlement, but because autonomy has been rationed. It is true and important that Black father involvement has increased significantly in recent decades. Data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention show Black fathers today are among the most involved across racial groups in daily caregiving activities. Salute to you, Black fathers today that stepped up. However, historical context matters. The 1980s and early 1990s saw disproportionate incarceration of Black men due to drug policy enforcement, fracturing generational transmission of guidance, protection, and modeling. Economic suppression compounds this loss, from redlining to the destruction of prosperous Black communities like Greenwood to hiring discrimination based on your name perception. Evidence is extensive. A seminal labor market study by Marianne Bertrand and Cindil, I'm not even going to try to attempt this last name, demonstrated that identical resumes receive fewer callbacks when associated with Black identifying names. This isn't anecdotal, it's systemic disadvantage measured in lost opportunity. And when fathers are removed by policy, opportunity, and denied structure and accountability, it hurts the Black future generations. And the frustration becomes inevitable. Other cultures face hardship, of course, but not the specific convergence of historical disruption, economic exclusion, and ongoing suspicion. The anger attributed to Black men is often grief with nowhere to land. Effort alone does not neutralize unequal starting positions. Wealth building research shows Black families on average possess a fraction of the generational assets available to white families with similar income levels. This limits risk taking, entrepreneurship, and recovery from failure, key ingredients for long term stability. Housing discrimination, unequal lending, and appraisal bias continue to suppress equity accumulation. Even when Black men do everything right, quote unquote, the margin for error is thinner. Chronic vigilance replaces optimism, and frustration replaces faith in systems that repeatedly fail to reciprocate effort. This economic precarity is often misread as irresponsibility, reinforcing the very stereotypes that cause the disparity, an identity trap with no natural or neutral exit. Humans are prone to experiential narcissism. When others' realities don't mirror our own, we discount them. Social cognition research shows people systematically underestimate barriers they have not personally faced. When Black men articulate structural obstacles, they are often met with minimization, moralizing, or blame. This invalidation intensifies anger, not because disagreement exists, but because reality itself is being denied. When explanation is punished and silence is misinterpreted as guilt, emotional compression occurs. Over time, that compression leaks out as irritability, withdrawal, or explosive frustration. Anger in this context is not a lack of control, it is the cost of being unheard. Neuroscience research on identity threat shows that repeated exposure to suspicion and stereotype activates the amygdala and stress pathways, elevating cortisol, blood pressure, and inflammatory markers. Over time, this contributes to higher rates of hypertension, sleep disruption, and mood dysregulation among Black men. What looks like quote unquote attitude is often physiological exhaustion. Living in constant defense mode erodes patience, not because of temperament, but because the body was never allowed to stand down. Anger is data. It signals blocked pathways, violated dignity, and unresolved loss. When Black men are angry, the question is not what's wrong with them, but what conditions made this the only available language. Until mentorship is normalized, stereotypes dismantled, fatherhood protected, economic access equalized, and lived experience validated, anger will continue to be mislabeled as pathology instead of prophecy, a warning of systems out of alignment with human dignity. And not all Black men are angry. Not all Black men are alarmed or aware. Some are okay with the way things are. But rebellion is necessary. It's necessary.